Hello and welcome to a Fresh Thinking podcast by Snowden Optiro. It's a series that we explore sectors in the mining industry, from engineering, geology, etc. Today's topic, which I'm looking forward to, is mentoring in the geoscience industry. And today I've got Ian Glacken, who's an executive consultant with us at Snowden. I'm Matt Walker. I'm a principal consultant with Snowden Optiro. And it's a great pleasure to have Ian here, and I've got a few questions prepared that I'm going to dive into his prestigious career. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, Matt,
for joining me. But I guess the first question I have is, looking back on your career, was it plus 35 years now, or even longer?
Longer, but no, we won't say how long.
I sort of wanted to dive into who are your mentors that you had throughout your career, and what in particular made those engagements special, or what did they bring to your career development?
Thanks, Matt. So when I first started, like you, I was originally from the UK, and I came out and worked for WMC. I mean, some people would say WMC stands for Where's My Consultant? But actually the company was called Western Mining Corporation. So in those days, way back, WMC was quite a big company, very big company, big mining company, and it was very prestigious to work for them. So when I was at university in the UK, and this relates to mentoring, because the guy that interviewed me was a chap called Roy Woodall, who some people know. He's died now, he's dead, but he was the director, exploration manager, then director of WMC. And back in those days, I mean, he proved to be a great mentor for me. And back in those days, he did all the interviewing. So he came to the Royal School of Mines, where I was doing an MSc, and he was interviewing, I don't know how many people he interviewed, maybe 20, between the BSc Geology and the MSc Geology, which is what I did. So one thing you need to know is that I did a bachelor's at Durham University, and then in between working for doing my bachelor's and my master's, I worked for a company called Brook Bond Liebig, or Brook Bond Oxo. Now, those of you from the UK will know that Brook Bond makes tea and tea bags, and Oxo makes Oxo cubes. So I had this chat to Roy, and this is basically how I got my job in geology. And he said, "Oh, what job are you doing?" I said, "Oh, well, I was doing this work, and I had a job as a troubleshooter in a tea bag factory," which is absolutely the truth. They sent me up to the factory in Manchester where they make PG tips, and they were selling too many overweight tea bags. So anyway, I like to think that joke, it wasn't a joke, it was the truth. I like to think that got me the job with Western Mining, being a troubleshooter in a tea bag factory. Anyway, having said that, Roy Woodall was a great mentor. I mean, he had an incredible work ethic, and the questions he asked and how he related to people was something I learned a lot of. And then as a junior geologist, I went to Kambalda, which, as you know, is in those days it was a nickel sulfide producing, and at one point there was up to 9 nickel sulfide mines, and then we found the gold. Western Mining found the gold, WMC found the gold, and there was some gold mines there, and there were some fantastic people I worked with there. I just mentioned 2 of them, who I would consider to be mentors to me. When I got there, the chap that was the chief geologist was a chap called Jeff Gresham, who's retired these days and lives down in Margaret River. But he was the chief geologist, a New Zealander, but let's not hold that against him. And he was a great inspiration in terms of leadership and asking the right questions, and how he treated people. And I guess from Jeff, I learned a lot about leadership and communication. And then I worked out at a mine. I worked at quite a few mines, but the first mine I worked at was a nickel sulfide mine called Fisher McMahon, and I was an assistant geologist to a chap called Rob Smith, and Rob Smith was a fantastic mentor to me. I mean, he was a really very particular sort of person. When I say particular, I mean he did things fully and completely, and he showed me a lot of techniques, like how to do interpretation and this, that, and the other, and importantly, how to communicate with people.
Yeah.
And in those days, the the mines were quite wild places, and you would, as the geologist, you would sit down at the lunch table, the crib table, with the shift bosses and the foreman, and there would be a bit of banter. Let's put it politely, it was a bit of banter. Anyway, Rob sort of showed me how to handle this banter, and I was doubly handicapped being a POM. So Rob Smith is still around. Rob was a fantastic mentor to me, and he showed me how to do the things, the correct procedure, and everything. So there was just three names: Roy Woodall, Jeff Gresham, and Rob Smith from my Western mining days.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've heard a lot of war stories about WMC, so it's good to get some information on that. I guess the second point I'd like to discuss is, what do you think the most important role a mentor can play in an early geologist's career?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a number of things the mentor can sort of show you. One is the technical side of things. So how to interpret, how to do QA/QC, how to do estimation. But you can sort of learn that from a textbook.
Yep.
I think the one of the most important things the mentor can give you is a sense of curiosity. How to keep looking at things and to investigate. But as I mentioned to you in the previous question, what the mentor can show you is how to communicate with people, particularly in conflict situations. And you've worked in mines, there's quite a few of those. When you have a situation where it's not always a pleasant meeting.
Yep.
And how to handle that. And quite often the geologist was the subject of some abuse, let's call it that, and how to handle that, and then I put that under the broad definition of emotional intelligence, how to sort of deal with people, and how to communicate in meetings. And then probably the third thing is how to communicate in a written form. And in those days we didn't do too many presentations, but these days, as you know, we do a lot of presentation slides and so on. So how to communicate in a written form and verbally. So I think that's important, but I think the ethical behavior of your mentor is important as well. Just how to do the right thing, as well as the technical side of things.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. That's there are a lot of soft skills I've learned from my mentors through the years, and a lot of the being able to work up and down the ladder and communicate changes is it's a massive skill set to have, and I'm really thankful for the opportunity I've had in that regard.
Yeah, it's important.
And finally, resource geology is quite a nice subject to get into, a good career movement. I guess, is there any advice you'd provide to any aspiring resource geologists? Where should they focus their energies, build skill sets in certain disciplines, to progress towards resource geology?
Yeah, so what I would say, Matt, is that the skill set has definitely changed from when I was a young lad many centuries ago. In those days, and it's still the case now. I mean, above all else, you're a geologist. So you've got to have those geological skills. So you've got to understand the ore bodies. You've got to understand the rocks. So you do need a grounding in geologists. I mean, we could argue about this. You and I won't argue, but others might, that non-geologists can do a resource estimation. Well, that's true, but I think the subtle side of things is understanding the geology. So fundamental then and fundamental now is an understanding of geology. I think these days, and to a lesser extent then, statistics and geostatistics are important. Understand the theory. I mean, mathematics is useful to have, and a lot of people, including myself, come into geology because they're not much good at maths, so that's a bit of a problem. But you've got to understand, some fundamentals, some key issues. You don't need to be able to have to derive the Kriging equations from first grade, so that's important. And I think what's changed probably since when I first started to now is the programming side of things. The aspiring resource geologists almost certainly need some programming knowledge. Now, you could argue that you can use AI to write Python scripts for you, but I still think you need to understand things like loops and sorting and all of those basic sort of things, how to program. And so from the technical point of view, you obviously need the geology, you need the geostats and the statistics. You do need that programming skill. So I would advise aspiring resource geologists to work on the mathematical side of things, but also on the programming side of things, because your career, if you're a young resource geologist these days, your career will involve a lot of scripting, a lot of programming. Yours does, and that's important. And then the other things we would put under this idea of soft skills.
Yeah.
So documentation, how to write a report. There's nothing worse than having done a fantastic job at a resource estimate, but not being able to communicate it. And as you and I have spoken, and we've all spoken about this, however good the resource is, if you're reading the report and you can't understand what the person's writing, then you're going to get turned off. And the same applies to a lesser extent to per presentations, to PowerPoints and so on. So they're the skills. To summarize geology, stats and geostats, programming to a certain extent, and then soft skills like communication, writing and presenting. So I think if you focus on those areas, then you can't go too far wrong.
Fantastic. Well, I think we'll conclude it there. I could definitely talk for a lot longer on this subject, but thanks Ian for joining us today. And
thanks, Matt.
Yeah, see you on the next one. Thank you.